Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Business Africa. I'm Ahmelnga. Coming up in the program, a slowing global economic growth. The International Monetary Fund is revising its forecast for the next 2 years. Unemployment rates in Africa. The African Development Bank advocates for the creation of 12 million new jobs each year to contain the increasing figures. And Guinea-Bissau is revising its economic recovery plan for 2019. The country is heavily indebted and majorly relies on the cashew nut sector. A gloomy economic climate hangs over the Davos Forum, which is now in its 49th year. The International Monetary Fund took the opportunity of this World Economic Forum to announce a downward revision of its growth forecasts for the next 2 years. The slowdown in growth in developed countries will have a significant economic impact in terms of development. Philemon Mbale with the details.
The International Monetary Fund lowered its overall growth forecast earlier this week for 2019 and 2020. Global activity is expected to grow by 3.5% this year and reach 3.6% next year. For 2019, this represents a significant decrease of 0.2% compared to projections made by the IMF in October 2018. This deteriorating growth forecast concerns both developed and emerging economies. Growth in the most advanced economies is expected to be 2% in 2019 and 1.7% in 2020 compared to a forecast of 2.3%. 2019 will be a long one for developing countries, but their economies will improve from 2020, the IMF predicts. In view of this situation, which promises hard times for the world's economy, the fund suggests strengthening multilateral cooperation and optimizing national policies by increasing productivity, diversifying industrial structures, increase labor involvement, and relieve the state of the burden of debt. A series of recommendations that seem somewhat contradictory at a time when the world and African economies in particular are facing rising protectionism and a decline in multilateral initiatives.
Good news for African countries. The African Development Bank growth forecasts for 2019 and 2020 are 4 and 4.1% respectively. The bank says several factors, including a mild recovery in commodity prices and improved macroeconomic stability, will have a positive impact on the continental economy from this year onwards. However, Africa still faces a huge job challenge and the creation of quality jobs. To do this, the AFDB is focusing on key sectors such as increasing intra-African trade. Eric Oteng tells us more.
Africa continues to face the problem of youth unemployment and lack of employment opportunities. A study published last year shows that only 3 million jobs are created each year, while 10 to 12 million young people enter the labor market each year. A situation that could become even more worrying, according to the African Development Bank. The African working age population is expected to reach around 1 billion by 2030, up from 750 million in 2018. To reduce the negative effects that lack of employment could have on the African economy, the AFDB advocates in its latest report the creation of about 12 million new jobs each year. To achieve this, however, it will be necessary to create the conditions for strong and sustainable growth. A positive point raised by the AFDB, the region's growth forecasts for 2019 and 2020 are 4 and 4.1% respectively. Growth driven by a slight recovery in commodity prices and an improved macroeconomic stability. The urgent need is to create jobs in high productivity sectors by developing a strong manufacturing sector. African countries are expected to focus in particular on opportunities such as the implementation of the World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement, which would generate a total of about $100 billion per year.
We now discuss this with Dr. Kwesi Aning, Director of the Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center in Accra, Ghana. Hello, Dr. Kwesi, and welcome to Business Africa.
It's a great pleasure.
From the AFDB's perspective, would you say that the economic outlook for Africa in 2019 is encouraging?
The outlook is encouraging. The outlook is positive. They don't really mean anything until they translate into transforming people's lives and improving people's lived experiences. If we were to do a random sampling, the outlooks that have been proposed or have been presented over the past decade or two, they haven't turned out into realities and touched on the lives of ordinary African people. So there's a bit of a lacuna between what is written and projected and our ability to translate and transform those projections into reality, into meaningful reality that transforms and improves people's life. Well, I think it's agriculture first and foremost. And it's very basic. It's not rocket science. Africa's ability to feed itself and to create jobs through the agricultural sector in a manner that is meaningful to people's lives so that our youth don't cross the Sahara Desert in search of the hypothetical greener pasture somewhere.
And during 2018, financial institutions expressed concern on several occasions about the debt levels of African countries. Do you think the trend can be reversed this year?
Well, I think probably if we had another word different from colossal, that probably just captures the near improbability of creating this number of jobs. That would be more correct. So the demand, the expectation for jobs by young people, particularly young people, is just so huge. Our government's understanding of the problem, of the demographic challenge leading to employment challenges, and by extension, dealing with the sense of exclusion that mutates sometimes into violence is so huge. Unfortunately, the conversations around job creation across this continent, except in a few places, is more of political rhetoric than hands-on operational interventions that actually create jobs. I think the political rhetoric is fantastic.
And finally, there's still the major issue of unemployment. The AfDB talks about the need to have 12 million new jobs every year, a challenge that several countries are still struggling to meet.
No, I don't think so. Getting into debt is an easy thing. And African governments over time, have just borrowed and borrowed and borrowed and created this vicious cycle of borrowing to pay the interest of the previous loan, in which very little is left actually for development purposes. I truly don't think we are out of the debt trap right now, and I haven't seen or read any solid analysis or governmental intervention or thought processes that seeks to get us out of the debt trap. I mean, it's become such a vicious cycle. And because when we borrow, Parliament's ability to play its oversight function as to how the debt or the borrowed sums have been used, and also to punish those who have not used them well, it's almost non-existent. I mean, quite a number of our countries are paying debts that they borrowed 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And it's almost impossible to have a positive correlation between these monies borrowed and whatever development projects they were used for.
Thank you, Dr. Kwesi Aning, for giving us your insights regarding this. Guinea-Bissau is determined to recover its economy, which is still marked by low mobilization of national revenues. This coming up after the break.